Hope everyone had a good day today. We're waiting for our guests to join us. Tonight will be an interesting conversation. Hello, Elizabeth from Queens. Welcome. Cherie is getting us all together with the streaming.
Ooh, I got those things in the back. Give me a sec. All right, everybody. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello. And I'm going to apologize in advance. If I get dropped, I'll log back in, but it's storming outside and it's no telling what's going to happen.
Okay, all right. Hi,
Hi, LaToyia.
Audio.
Hey, how you doing?
How are you?
Good, doing good, thank you.
Hello, Cherie. How are you?
I'm good.
Did I pronounce your name right?
Cherie. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a
Let's
friend.
just jump right in.
Cherie, and it's spelled differently, so I just want to make sure.
Yeah, no, that's that. Look, I answer almost anything. So
Okay.
And we are streaming tonight. We're on, where are we at, Cherie? YouTube, Facebook, where else are we at?
Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Yes.
All right.
I'm going to let you lead, Tawana, and I will jump in when you need me.
Well, I'm going to start by saying thank you to LaToyia for joining us again this evening. And I want to publicly apologize for our mishap with text messages. So LaToyia is one of our Bet on Black pitch entrepreneurs that we celebrated last week, I believe it was, right? Not this week, but last week. And we send out text message reminders to the community to remind you guys to, it's time for the Bet on Black pitch. And because we had the word cannabis in the text message, our texting system didn't like that. And so our members did not get their reminders. And so we didn't have as many people participate as we would have liked to live. And so as a way for us to give our most humble apologies, we said, you know what? We got one better. Let's go public with this thing, right? And so we streaming tonight, baby. And everybody who watches us will be able to see it. We're going to talk about the campaign. It's not something we do, often. So to all my other entrepreneurs, don't be like, how come y'all streaming this company? I just told you why. So I don't want no calls later, y'all. But this is going to be awesome. It's an awesome topic. And as we were talking to LaToyia last week, we actually got into some of the stigmas around cannabis, and it really was a good conversation. Actually turned into a lot more than a pitch. And so we said, even then, you got to come back and talk to us and educate us on the industry and the opportunities. And so this all just makes sense. Because this is an area where we know there's an opportunity for wealth building. That's what we do. We need to be familiar with the laws as they are changing in many of the states we all live in. And so we want to be well informed about the opportunities that are out there. So with that said, I'm going to first let LaToyia introduce herself, introduce her company. For those of you who are live with me here in Zoom, I've put her campaign link in the chat. We're going to talk about that as well. We're going to pull it up and look at it and see it and talk about it because she is raising capital to take her business to the next level. And we are going to, let's just do the thing. And Cherie want to get, Cherie's going to get a little messy tonight, and that's okay. because that's what she does. And I'm
She
I'm
said I
growing
can
to
get
my stage
messy,
of acceptance.
everybody. She said I can get messy. Oh,
She
yes.
can get a little messy. She can get a little messy. We'll see what happens. With that said, LaToyia, my dear, thank you. Welcome back. We're so glad to have you. Tell us about what you are doing.
Thank you guys for having me. My name is LaToyia Rucker. I'm the COO of Calyxeum. Calyxeum is a female-owned and operated cannabis cultivation and processing brand located in Detroit, Michigan. Currently, we're in around 25 locations with our products, which is topical flower and edibles. We're currently scaling. We're working with other retailers to get our products on the shelves. So super excited about the opportunity to have our products across the state of Michigan, and we want to expand across the country. Just now we found out that Rhode Island just became legalized for cannabis. So it's more states that are coming on, which means more opportunities to be had. I started in the cannabis industry back in 2009. So it really is a labor of love for me. It's a passion for me. I started out as a cannabis caregiver, which was one of the first entry points into the industry where I could grow cannabis for myself and 5 other patients. And I began to cook with it, infuse it, teach other people how to cook, and teach other people how to grow the plant. And so now, fast forward to 2022, we have Calyxeum.
Nice. Very, very good. So excited to talk about this, and such you talked a little bit to us last week about how important it was to be a caregiver in some of the experiences you had with your grandmother and how it helped. Can you talk a little bit about the medicinal purposes of cannabis?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so my grandmother, she used cannabis most of her life recreationally, but as she aged, as she got older, as she was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, she had a heart attack, she had osteoporosis, and so she suffered from a lot of like autoimmune and chronic pain. And so cannabis, we wanted to source the cannabis from a better source other than the streets. And it just so happened that during that time, right after she had her heart attack, cannabis became legal to grow medically in the state of Michigan. And so a friend of mine at the time, she had basically opened up one of the first hydroponic shops that was female and Black owned on the west side of Detroit. And she was a mentor to me, and she gave me the opportunity to come in, and I was kind of making them like for friends, like I said, making edibles for my friends and my family. And so she gave me the opportunity to actually teach others how to cook with cannabis. And so in that process, I just learned so much about the medicinal benefits. A lot of people look at cannabis as something that you smoke or you inhale, but you get better benefits from actually ingesting it. As a matter of fact, my physician, she recommends me to eat cannabis versus smoke. It's just better, for the lungs, and actually lasts longer. And for a lot of folks who suffer from chronic pain and chronic illness, it really is an alternative to opioids. It's an alternative to taking Tylenol. It's an alternative to taking a lot of other, prescribed medicine. And so I just, I treat it such as that, it's in my health and wellness routine. If I don't smoke it, I'll ingest it or I'll use it topically. I used to be a basketball player, so I have a lot of little, injuries from that. And the cream just, put it right on the point of pain, and it really does help.
Yeah, when you talk about the medicinal benefits, it made me think when we watch the commercials from pharmaceutical companies on TV, and then they give that long list of, if you have this, don't use it. And if you have that, don't use it. And it's just like, you don't typically hear that when you talk about the medicinal use and purposes and how helpful cannabis is. And I know that there's a stigma about cannabis, and we're going to talk about that because that came up last week when we were talking about it. And so there's as many of us that believe that it shouldn't be used recreational, or we have opinions about how it's used medicinally, as there are that agree that it is perfectly okay to be used recreational. So, you'll have people on both sides of that. And so, Sharia, what are your thoughts about the medicinal purposes?
Oh, put me on the spot here. Okay, so from the things that I have read and heard and understand, I am all for medicinal purposes. I was fortunate enough to be in a small room with where Montel Williams was speaking. This was a few years ago, and many people know that he suffers from multiple sclerosis, and he gave a very good, passionate speech, but he's been one of the ones that have been on the front line of cannabis usage, but I only heard him talk about it from a medicinal point of view for decades. And I understand that, you can smoke it, but also people are putting CBD into lotions and into different food products and things like that. So there are different ways that people are able to consume it. I am one of those people, though, on the recreational side that has concerns. So
we're not ready to talk about that yet. We still on medicinal.
I know. Medicinal. So I'm just letting everybody know.
I'm gonna let them know
why you punted it to me.
I'm gonna let them know your position.
You can let them know my position.
You made it very clear your position. But you said something that was interesting. You referenced CBD, and I want LaToyia to talk about that and the difference between TBC and the when you add the THC content back in, kind of what that is, because I know there's also a lot of confusion about that. Like I can tell you, some of my family members, when you talk about CBD, they don't understand that it is different, right? That the chemical makeup is different. So, LaToyia, do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yes. So within the cannabis family of plants, there are different types of genius of the plant. So you have cannabis hemp, right? Then you have cannabis indica, cannabis sativa. You even have one called Cannabis ruderalis. And a lot of that really just means the region and origin of where it came from. Indicas typically come from, I would say, like Afghanistan, more Middle East. Sativas grow in more warmer climates. Ruderalis grows in more colder climates. And then hemp kind of just grows everywhere. And hemp really is the cannabis sativa indica that really doesn't get you high. It has a very small, minimal amount of THC in it, but it has a lot of the same chemical properties that the other plants have. It's just not psychoactive chemicals. So again, it won't get you high. It will make you feel good because we all have what's called an endocannabinoid system in our bodies. And so, just like we have a circulatory system, a respiratory system, we have an endocannabinoid system, and it works as if it was like a lock and key scenario. And so that's why we love cannabis, most of us. That's why even animals love cannabis. Animals like to eat cannabis plants because they know it's going to make them feel good or make them feel better. Now, feeling good and feeling better is different than feeling high. And so that's kind of how you differentiate the THC, like I said, psychoactive, versus cannabis hemp, which is non-psychoactive. Now, I think I saw somebody mention Delta 8. I just want to touch on Delta 8 because therein lies more confusion, right? In the subject. So what has happened is, because growing hemp has become federally legal. So it's legal for you to grow hemp, right? In the United States of America. It's no longer on the, listed as a Schedule I, because they realize that it has such low amounts of THC in it that it won't get you high. But what has happened is big business, folks with, the resources and capital had decided to go ahead and grow tons of hemp. And so what happened was you had this surplus of hemp all over the country where folks were growing it and processing it, making all type of products. But when they realized is when they processed it and broke it down into the oil, that the chemical compound THC started to show up more because you got tons of it. So it's more highly concentrated. And so what happened was they discovered that if you combine tons and tons of hemp, if you process it down to an oil, you can extract this molecule called Delta 8, right? And Delta 9. So like I said, hemp does have THC in it, but very small amounts. But when you process it in large quantities, then that percentage increases. And so that's why you can get some Delta 8 products and it will get you high, right? Because also the science is still very new on the Delta 8, and the difference between Delta 8 and Delta 9 is one small little molecule, right? So even when they're analyzing it in a laboratory setting, you really can't tell the difference. They look so similar. So that's why, again, folks are getting high, because it's this huge concentration of Delta 8 and Delta 9, and it's really hard to tell the difference. And so that's why states have started to ban Delta 8. They banned it in Michigan. You now, if you want to process Delta 8 products, you have to get a license just like me to process. And they even changed the regulatory body that issues those licenses. Before it was the hemp side, right? But now they transferred it over to the cannabis side because they saw that people were getting high from this large concentration. So I hope I made sense. I hope I helped enlighten. Yeah.
You did. That was very good. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's switch to the recreational side.
Wait, before you do that, everyone on YouTube, please like the video. It really helps with the algorithm, please. Please like the video. Thanks.
So recreationally, right? Cannabis has been around for as long as I've been around, right? And I'm sure way, way before then. And there has always been this stigma around people who used it. It has always been a conversation, how it ranks among other drugs, right? That have not been legal. And so what's interesting is I find the conversation has changed, right? When you legalize it now, some of those same arguments are hard to uphold, right? Because now it is legal in several states. Federally, it is not yet recognized as a legal drug. But I would imagine that a lot of that has to do with how to monetize it from a government standpoint, how to tax it, and not as much on the health benefits or right. And so let's have some dialogue about that a little bit, the stigma and what people think and say and our position. I will say that I'm a believer in recreational use of cannabis. It is a natural plant that grows in its natural form. You can use it without adding anything to it. And in my world, that's no different than me taking a leaf of sage off the plant and putting it in my pasta. So that's my position, right? If you added something to it, my mind would completely change, right? The synthetic versions and all of that stuff, I don't agree with those at all. But when you take a leaf off the plant, no different than a tea leaf or a piece of oregano or sage, in my mind, it is no different. And I know that is not everyone's view. But so Cherie, did you want to talk about that? What your position is and how you feel about, because I know you have an opposing view than I do.
Just put me on the spot. Okay. Yeah. So look, I recognize that, again, on the medical side, that's one thing. On the recreational side, I do have some concerns, especially from a Black person's point of view. My biggest concern is that it's going to slow us down, right? And we're already so far behind. I just worry that our consumption, just like people consume alcohol, and I've seen people consume alcohol, to a point where they are functionally drunk, but we call it functional alcoholics. That's what they call it, right? Or you see other people in your family who have, they are addicted to certain pills that are prescription pills, right? and they become functional, but it slows them down. So my biggest concern is, number one, will recreational cannabis slow us down, especially our Black men who, in Chicago, 50% of them are already unemployed. Is it, from a social point of view, is it going to harm us as a community more than it helps us? So that's it.
Interesting.
I
guess I would. Oh, go ahead, LaToyia. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna say, I think she has, super valid concerns. But one thing that always kind of amazes me about this cannabis conversation is that we act as though it just arrived.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, has it slowed us down? Right. I was gonna say, if are we insinuating that all of the things that plague young Black men has something to do with cannabis? I mean, I would say that the system has been more against them, that we've locked up half of our Black men for either selling or using cannabis, only to now make it legal is a very much a slap in the face. And when we made it legal in the first state, everybody in that state, at the very least, who has been arrested for the use or the consumption or the sales of it, should have had their record wiped clean and been released as soon as the state said, I say this is legal. And then that should happen in every state afterwards when they say this is legal. I guess I would agree. If it's, do you believe that is what has plagued our Black men thus far? Because cannabis has been around.
Yeah, cannabis has been around, but so the one time I had a chance to try cannabis, I didn't. I was in Amsterdam. I'm deathly afraid of going to jail. So I don't do much of anything that is against the law.
Isn't it legal in Amsterdam? You couldn't go going to jail there.
It is legal in Amsterdam. So when I was there for study abroad, I went with some friends, and the way Amsterdam works, you could either go upstairs to smoke pot, or you could go downstairs and drink. And there were 5 of us, and 4 of us were nah, we're okay. So we went downstairs. So the 5th person that wanted to do pot came down with us. And that was my only time to ever try it, right? But do I think, so it has been around, yes. But I don't think, and I'm talking outside of criminal justice, I'm just talking people smoking it just across the board, right? I don't see where somebody has smoked cannabis and said, because of cannabis, I started this multi-billion-dollar industry. Or because of cannabis, especially in the Black community, I just, because of cannabis, I got that promotion. Because of cannabis, I've seen with my eyes, because of cannabis, the person was slowed down in their career prospects, in their ability to run faster. Somebody is saying Snoop Dogg. Do we really think Snoop Dogg is the pinnacle of where our people could be? Yeah, I'm controversial, but this is how I really feel. I don't think that when I look at the amazement of what Black people can be, I don't put Snoop Dogg up there and say, yeah.
But here's what's funny, and LaToyia, I'm gonna let you get in. But here's what's funny is, with the stigma attached, how many multi-billionaires running corporate offices do you think are coming clean about their usage because they're going to be judged by it, right? And I would argue to say, not having any expertise in the health area of it, but I would argue to say that now that it's legalized, it's probably the safest it's ever been.
Yes.
Let LaToyia
yeah, no, I'm gonna say this and then I have to go run and get my charger, guys. I apologize. It's not with me. But what I want to say is that I think if folks are going to be lazy, it doesn't matter if they smoke cannabis or not. Some folks just unfortunately have addictive personalities, and it somehow may take over their life. But I guess that's the difference between Calyxeum and maybe some other cannabis brands, we focus on cannabis professionals. And, we believe that there are more cannabis professionals out there that deserve to have a platform like ours to be able to connect with, because we do consume and we do work super, super hard. And I think just like anything, like if, you can abuse it, right? But at the same time, if you use it for, purposes to relax, to unwind, the end of the day, it's not something that you're doing all day. It's not something that's getting in the way of your daily life and activities. I really just don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, even the Bible talks about God gave us dominion over every herb-bearing plant and tree and seed and fruit. That is what cannabis is. It yields seeds. It's a flower.
I have a smart ass answer to that. God gave us dominion over poison ivy, but I'm not rubbing it on myself.
But poison ivy actually,
I was going to say, but poison ivy actually has benefits. There's benefits. There's some situations where it's what you should use, right?
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
I think the berries are what's poisonous, right? So maybe the leaves have some medicinal property. Even the coca leaf. Mm-hmm. Even the coca leaf. Some cultures use the coca leaf as an analgesic for pain. Since the beginning of time, humans have been trying to figure out how to, cope, how to manage pain. We have pain as we get older, we get injured, stress, all these things. So this is something that God knew that we needed. He put plants here for us to test and try out and see, hey, this one might work for you. Kratom, that's another plant that people use for pain relief. So, the conversation really needs to be on a larger scale, is about plants in general, plants as an alternative to opioids and synthetic pain relievers and drugs. So I think when you look at it from that approach, you may just kind of embrace it more, because people are embracing the plant-based lifestyle. And to me, that encompasses everything, not just the food you eat, but also the medicines and the things that you use to relax, unwind, and even have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say one thing, and then I definitely want you to talk about your campaign.
Well, let her run and get her charger.
Let me run and get my charger. I'm sorry. I'll be right back.
Okay. So I definitely am from an investor/business person point of view, 100% with cannabis, because according to Forbes, y'all know I got my numbers.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the market. $1.7 billion market opportunity in 2023. So this is when personal opinion and the ability to get a good ROI crossroads, and you got to make a decision, right?
Crossroads. So I don't believe cannabis like ends anybody's life or anything like that, which is why, I'm perfectly fine with it from an investor point of view. And the truth is, I think that everyone has free will. And if it's something that you want to do recreationally, I don't judge anybody for it either. I just expressed some concerns, and Tawana and I, along with Talisha, had some very interesting conversations. So they know that the two of them know that I'm a little wonky crazy, and now all of you are now introduced to that. Yeah.
So let's talk. So LaToyia, I remember you talked about, because I wrote it down in my notes, $1.7 billion is the market opportunity, right? In 2023 alone, if I got that right. I believe that wasn't just
in 2021. Yes.
Oh, that was in 2021.
That was the BDSA report for Michigan recreational cannabis sales.
Wow.
Almost 2 billion.
Almost 2 billion. Rhode Island is now moving forward, right? More states will follow. I would imagine every time a new state comes on, that market opportunity grows. Is that a fair statement?
I would say yes, absolutely.
So tell us about your investment opportunity in Calyxeum and what you guys are doing. And we've been putting the link here in the chat on Zoom. We put it in Facebook. We put it on YouTube. But let's talk about it a little bit. and so that the people can go to the campaign page for themselves, learn about everything you're doing over there. But we want to hear from you as well.
Yeah. So we decided to do a crowdfunding campaign for a few reasons, but mainly was because when we first launched Calyxeum, we were featured in blackbusiness.com as one of the, well, number 2 Black company to invest in. And at the time, we had really just kind of like gotten started, and we just got our website, going, and we were very new and fresh as far as Calyxeum was concerned. I was in the industry for years, but Calyxeum was more of a new project. And folks, because of that article, just flooded our emails, flooded the website, wanting to invest. And a lot of the conversations we had was, I want to invest $1,000, or I want to invest $500, or I got $2,500 to invest. And so we were in this weird space because we knew exactly how much capital we needed to raise. But at the time, we couldn't take on any more than 35 non-accredited investors. And so because of that, we had to say no to so many people. And so after that, I was really frustrated because I'm just like, this is not cool. I mean, these folks should have an opportunity. And just so happened that legislation changed. COVID happened, these emergency rules, the Jobs Act. It was just like the perfect scenario and opportunity to now say, okay, let's go back and see if we can get, as many people as possible. We have so much engagement on social media, and people just want to support us and they reach out. And so we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's find a platform. And one of my mentors, Khadijah Adams, she's pretty big in the cannabis space. She recommended Mainvest. And we just went through the whole process of giving them all our financial information, our business plan. And so on our page, you can see our data room, you can see our projections. And our projections were derived from really solid calculations. So it's not just, oh, we want to be millionaires and this is what we think is going to happen in 5 years. No, we used a calculation that allows us to basically look at our footprint. And our footprint meaning cultivation footprint. So based off of the square footage of the rooms that we're going to have, how many plants we're going to have, how much lighting we're going to have in each room, there's a calculation that you can come up with to determine how much you would produce, how many pounds of cannabis that you would produce. And so we basically said, we know what happened in Colorado, the prices dropped. Initially, cannabis was about $3,500 a pound before the market matured. In California, cannabis was as high as $6,000 a pound before the market matured. And then once the market matured, it really went down. And so a lot of our numbers was based off of a $1,700 pound. Currently in Michigan, the prices fluctuate depending on the strain, the quality, the brand, and the THC, and all the different compounds that are in the plant, the terpene profiles and things like that. And so we wanted to be very conservative with our numbers. And so if you look at our financials, you'll see we're conservative, but we are looking at a 22% net profit margin in our projections. And again, that's very, very conservative. And so Mainvest, you can go on, invest as little as $100 and receive 1.5x ROI on your investment. So of course, the more you invest, the bigger the return. And it matures. It's basically like a loan. I'm sure you guys are pretty educated in your community about, the difference between a revenue sharing note and then equity in certain companies. But the loan matures in 2027. So we plan on paying everyone back on a quarterly basis. And the goal is to pay all of our investors back within the first 2 to 3 years of full, complete operations.
Wonderful. So if you are watching us, please look in the comments of the platform that you're watching this on. The campaign link will be there on YouTube. It's in Facebook. If you're here with us in Zoom, it's here. We put the campaign page out there. If you can't find that, then please come to our Facebook group and make a comment, and we'll post a link in your comment so that you can see it. I think, and Cherie, I love that you agreed that, you know, from an investment standpoint, right? When you talk about the business of cannabis, that's a completely different conversation. Completely different, right?
The market, no,
And
the market is there. So I've done a couple of cannabis business plans, and the market is definitely there. And it is across all ethnicities, all ages, different use cases that people want for it. And also, I know that we're going to talk to LaToyia about this, but there are a lot of different ways that people can make money within cannabis. You don't have to necessarily be a dispenser. In fact, some of the most profitable ways are not in the dispensary, they're in other areas. So we do have some questions. I know we had a couple of questions in YouTube and some questions here in Zoom. We want to make sure we're answering people's questions as well. Do you want me to answer them, or you want to?
Yeah, if you're in YouTube. Yeah, I'm not in YouTube, sorry.
Okay, so, well, let's start with YouTube. So Snuggles is asking, is the cannabis that people smoke now natural, or is most of it genetically modified?
So that's interesting. So genetically modified, right? It really depends on what we're focusing on, because throughout history, we have had to identify different species of plants, do certain scientific methods to keep them going, to keep them around. For instance, bananas. A lot of the bananas that we consume is based off of one variety of a banana. There are several different types of bananas across the world, but what has happened is they've decided to focus on this specific type because it tastes great and it has all these different properties, that it travels well, doesn't go bad as quickly. So you have to identify those type of things just from a horticultural perspective, right? And so when you look at cannabis today versus cannabis, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 years ago, there's been technology that has given it more of an advancement. And so you're able to crossbreed different strands. But at the end of the day, I don't consider it to be genetically modified, because you're taking a male plant that produces pollen and you're, sprinkling that pollen on a female plant. And then you are allowing that female plant to then create seeds in which you plant. And then if you see something that you really like within this family of seeds that you created, then you focus on that one strand, right? And you continue to grow that, and you keep that almost as we call it the mother plant, right? That's the mother plant. So all of the generations of clones come from that mother plant. So I just think with the advancement of science, we've been able to create different strands, and each strand, again, has a different terpene profile, and maybe we can just touch on terpenes a little bit. Yes, terpenes are really what give cannabis its smell, its taste. For instance, lavender has terpenes in it. That's how you're able to smell lavender. And lavender is used in different forms as well, teas, and, people even smoke lavender. So it's kind of like that same concept. The terpenes are what's really, really give it its smell, its taste, and it just gives you more of an enhancement of the experience of the plant.
Great. Snuggles is also asking, how many different strains of cannabis are there?
Oh God, tons. I don't even want to start down that path. I mean, it's a
hundreds, thousands.
It's probably millions.
Wow, millions.
It's probably millions of different strands.
Wow.
Just because you have more and more folks that are breeding. And now, because this is everyone in the world uses cannabis, in some way, shape, and form. So it's a lot of strands. It's an infinite amount, I would say, at this point.
Nice.
Charles is saying in here, do you have any thoughts on pot coin, cannabis coin, dope coin, hemp coin, or any of the other canny cryptos?
I'm now just educating myself on the whole cryptocurrency and the NFT. I do know that I am working with a tech company on us having our own NFTs. So it's more of a promotional type thing. And also we want to do some things in the metaverse, have like a retail store in the metaverse to drive sales in the retail stores that we're in. But no, those coins I'm not familiar with, but I definitely would be interested in hearing more.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with any of those coins, and knowing enough about crypto, I'm not familiar with the cannabis coins. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, Talisha, you're in our
then
in the participants list. Do you know anything about them?
She had to leave, so we'll ask her about it though. Okay. Dr. Kimberly has a couple of statements in here, then I'll follow it up with a question. Dr. Kimberly is saying Ganjapreneur, go to ganjapreneur.com for up-to-date cannabis legislative information, and also marijuanamoment.net for up-to-date cannabis legislative information. So my question to you is, what are some of the resources that you use in order to stay up to date with the legislation?
Oh yeah, Ganjapreneurs, definitely. I get notifications. That's how I knew about the whole Rhode Island thing. So definitely that's a valid source. Yeah, Instagram gives you a lot of updates, right? Different platforms that, are focused on, cannabis. Calyxeum, we follow a lot of other cannabis brands, cannabis companies, cannabis related things. And then for us, because we're in Michigan, we really have relationships with a lot of the local legislators, local politicians. So we have helped write the Detroit ordinance for recreational cannabis. We sat alongside the mayor, Councilman Tate, a few other folks that work for the city in helping to guide them, because we really, for us, and this never was me before cannabis, but because of cannabis, I've been kind of pushed into this whole political forum of educating these folks that are writing the laws, educating these folks that are writing the regulations, because they have no idea what they're doing in a lot of cases. And we have to be vocal, and we have to have a seat at the table. And so it's been a very, eye-opening experience, because again, it wasn't anything that I actually wanted to do, but I'm just like, if I'm going to be in this industry, I have to have these conversations, because if not, for lack of a better term, I'm going to get screwed. Yeah. So I have to be very loud and vocal about like, no, we need this. You guys don't know what you're talking about. This is how it's been. We just want you to make it better, not make it worse.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Yeah. So let's talk about, first of all, I want to say this. We are not financial advisors. This is not financial advice. But we've put the campaign link in the chat of the Zoom we're on, the YouTube, the Facebook, and we want everyone to do their due diligence. But one of the things I will say very clearly is you got two sisters, right? And when you look at the campaign page and you watch the journey and watch the videos they have and read the pitch deck, you got two sisters doing their thing with this company. Very, very impressive work. They just opened a manufacturing plant. I mean, they are doing their thing when I tell you, okay? And so, we owe it to them to get as many eyes on this campaign as possible, right? So you should be sharing this campaign link. When you see this video, you should be like, yo, y'all ever heard of Calyxeum? Like, you should be telling your friend, like after you watch this replay, right? You should be going and telling 3 people. Because that's what we need them. That's what we need you to do so that they can have success. However you feel, my opinion, right? However you feel about the product itself, we have to start standing behind our Black founders that are doing things in a legal space, right? They are in a legal space. They have created a business model that I believe is spectacular. And they are growing it, and they need our help. They need our support. And we're always talking about all we need is each other and all that. This is an opportunity to be about that and just not talk about it. We don't want them going to banks begging for money, right? That they may or may not get. We don't want them to have to give up 70% of their company to get money from people who have a lot of money, right? We want them to be able to get the support that they need from this community. Whether you are a consumer of the product or not, the investment may be sound based on what we've learned. And you'll see in the pitch deck, there's financials, there are numbers, all of that is there. And so you can go and look at that for yourself. But there's a pitch deck that has the projections, and then the financials are part of the Form C. And so all of that is there for you to see when you do your due diligence. But what I'm asking you to do is to share this campaign. And I wanted to say that before we get too far down the rabbit hole. We are here for one purpose, and that is to educate. Well, actually, I guess we're here for two purposes: to educate the community, but to celebrate these women who are making it happen in an industry that I would imagine is not predominantly women, right? Let's talk about that for a minute. I mean,
much less predominantly women of color, much less predominantly Black women. Yes.
Less than 2% of people with color. And then, when you dwindle it down to just women of color, I mean, it's very small, finite amount. And that has really been my motivation, guys. I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I feel like I'm blessed enough to be able to really do just about anything that, my mind is set on. And I had to have a conversation with myself because I really wanted to just take the easy route out. I could go work for one of these companies if I wanted to, right? But I'm just looking at the landscape. I'm looking at how the industry shifted. Because initially, it wasn't an industry, right? 10 years ago, this was not an industry. This was a Black market, underground, illicit market that existed. And now it's a full-on industry. You're having trade shows. It's publicly traded on the stock market. You got all types of venture capital putting their money behind some of these companies. And you got white men that, have an endless supply of capital and don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know about the cannabis plant. They are just growing it to be growing it. And they're not putting the love and the passion. And, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing it, because a lot of women are not represented. A lot of people of color are not represented. And so, that's why we're doing it.
Yeah, very
so good. One of the plans that I'm writing right now is a larger cannabis player. Let's just say that. And they're Black owned. And when I was talking with them, doing research, we ended up having a cannabis retreat. The amount of money that's being thrown at them, just because people want to get into cannabis is like unreal. But they do come with heavy strings attached. Fortunately, my clients are not desperate. They know a lot of people, so they are able to get better terms. But these companies, it's going to be kind of like agriculture, where you're going to have a few conglomerates and then some little small farmers trying to stay afloat. And it is important what Tawana was saying with regards to us really supporting the smaller players in this. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to get in, and a lot of these states say they want diversity. When they initially announce, that we're making cannabis legal, they'll announce, and we're going to have X amount of licenses for diversity. And then they change the legislation and change it, and poof, it goes live and all of the diversity seats are gone. And then it comes down to money. And a lot of our Black entrepreneurs, I'm just going to talk for Black right now, don't have the money to compete with the big boys. Right. So they end up giving the licenses to the big boys because they're like, well, at least I know you're well funded. So that's some of the things from the inside that's happening. And I got like a lot of like inside, information and schooling with regard to this, which is why I know the numbers. I know it's a good business. So there's a couple of additional questions in here though, LaToyia, from Charles. What are your thoughts on sundial growers and Curaleaf?
Yeah, they're the big boys. They are the large multi-state operators who, again, they talk about the venture capital dollars. They have endless supply of money. But see, people don't understand cannabis is more of a niche plant, right? And so they think that they can just grow it and grow and grow it, and it's just going to be good. And it doesn't always equate because it really does require a lot of hands-on attention to create the best quality. I mean, you can grow it. It can be a weed and you can just grow it. But in order to create that real quality, almost like the difference between, a Miller Lite and like this craft brewery type beer, right? So yeah, in the large masses, the new folks that don't know anything about cannabis, will they purchase some stuff from Curaleaf or the other? Yeah, they will. But the folks who know, they're going to come to companies like Calyxeum because we are going to keep that standard going with the quality, consistency, and more of a craft style way of growing.
Yeah. And also in my research, there was a big conglomerate. And as I started doing my research on them, they owned all of these different brands underneath it. So you may hear like a big name, but then you go to a dispensary and you think you're going to a mom and pop shop, but no, it's part of the corporate brand. They either just bought it, never changed the name, or they have different brand names that are out there, but it's all owned by one conglomerate. So it's a tough industry. It's a tough industry, but it's also new enough where young brands and people like us can still make an impact. So Charles is asking thoughts on the social equity program they do in California.
Yeah, so it's pretty bad in California from all the folks that I've talked to, because again, it's that conversation about like, we get these licenses and they say we're going to set aside so many for social equity. It's easy to get a license. How do you become operational? And that's a whole different ball game. And what has happened in California and a few other states is that, people of color get these licenses and then they don't have the capital in order to, begin operations. And so they ended up giving up half of their company to some of the, folks that's got tons of money. And if you don't have the right attorney that's looking over all this paperwork, they will end up getting you out of your own company.
Wow.
So
it's true. And
Calyxeum is just me and Rebecca, okay? It's nobody else.
There are no secret partners.
No. And if we do bring on a partner, they're gonna look just like us. They're not gonna, no, absolutely not.
Very
so
good.
What are your big plans? Anything you want to tell the family? Like, where do you see this brand in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so we definitely want to be in other states. We want to do licensing plays if possible in states like, maybe New Jersey or Florida, New York, some of the newer states that have come on, Boston. So we're having those conversations now just about, what we want our brand to look like in other states. Do we want to have a cultivation and be in control of all of that? Or do we just want to license out the Calyxeum name, what that we built here in Michigan, have that strong presence here, and then, market it to other states? So we're still, exploring all those opportunities. We're thinking about doing like a flagship store because we're technically not a retail brand, right? We are more on the manufacturing and production side. So we're thinking about having a flagship store in Detroit since it's Calyxeum Detroit and we're from here and Detroit has supported us a lot. So yeah, those are our like 5-year plans.
Can you also talk, LaToyia, about the program that you guys have?
Yes. So we also do a lot of work in the community. That's really what I think differentiates us from a lot of other cannabis brands. They say they're doing stuff, but we don't see it, right? But what we have done is, and Rebecca, our CEO, is really, that's kind of like her baby, but created this 6 to 8 week incubator where we partner with the city of Detroit, and it's called the Detroit Cannabis Project. And it really gives folks that look like us an opportunity to get one-on-ones with her and other facilitators that are in the program that have the industry experience. They may work on the compliance side. They may work on the accounting side. So there's so many different aspects to creating a legal cannabis business that you need to have as many resources as possible. And we want folks to be ready and equipped to launch their businesses and be compliant with the state and with the local city government. And so it's really a huge educational piece. And eventually we want to do a workforce development program where the other side that a lot of folks don't see, we want to train other Blacks to learn how to grow, learn how to cook with cannabis, create their own products, because there's so many products that you can create from cannabis, from beverages to snacks to, the list is endless. And so that's a whole nother revenue source for entrepreneurs.
Very good. I want to talk about the other business opportunities within this industry. But first, I want to go back to the campaign page again. And I want to say that right now, Calyxeum has raised $39,500 towards their $100,000 goal. In this community, we spend a lot of money on a lot of things. And we don't always invest, right? A lot of times we just spend. Here's an opportunity to invest, help these Black female entrepreneurs get to their goal of $100,000. Their campaign ends on June 10th. I think it's important for us to say that. June 10th, today is what? May 25th. So we've got a few weeks left. Again, not financial advice. You got to do your own due diligence. But 16 days remaining to help these amazing entrepreneurs get to their goal of $100,000. And we can do it. There'll be enough people watching this video that you go back and do your due diligence and make a determination for yourself if you want this to go in your portfolio. Many of you will say yes and do it. So please consider going to this campaign page and doing your due diligence. With that said, let's talk about all of the other opportunities that there are, right? It's not just about dispensaries. What are some of the other areas where people of color, right? Because that's what we're here. We're here to help our community build wealth. How do we get into this field and build wealth from it? What are the areas and what are the areas and what are some skill sets that we would need to bring to that area to be successful?
Yeah. So I would say any skill set that you have that is already generating income, you can pretty much apply it to the cannabis industry. For instance, I mentioned accounting. That's a huge thing. I was just listening to a podcast and this accountant was talking about how cannabis businesses have maybe 50% higher chance of being audited by the IRS than a lot of other businesses, unfortunately. And so you really got to be tighten up when it comes to your accounting. And there's this crazy rule called 280E that allows us not to really write off a lot of the cost of goods sold. So you really need an accountant that knows what they're doing, knows how to do accrual accounting. And so, yeah, if you're an accountant, we need attorneys, you got to have an attorney. You got a lot of legal documentation that you have to review. And, it's just, it's an enormous task. If you're not an attorney, a lot of stuff you wouldn't even be able to, pick out of a contract. The list goes on and on. If you're a publicist, cannabis businesses need publicists. They need media, marketing. folks always come to me and they're like, I want to get into the cannabis industry and I don't know what to do. And I'm just like, what are you already doing? What are you already doing? Cherie, you mentioned you're helping folks with business plans, so you really just have to find your niche. And, it's really that simple. It really is that simple. This is a huge industry. It's got so many moving parts. It's so many ancillary businesses that can be created off of it. So yeah, that's what I would say.
I'll tell you another business. So I had another client who, in certain states, you have to have like a medical director or a pharmacist or somebody who is has like a medical license in order to be there to answer questions and things like that. So there's a lot of this specific client had a business that she was putting together where she was going to do provide on-call medical directors to small and mid-sized dispensaries that didn't want to have a person on site. Because if you have a medical director on site, you got to pay like a very high wage for a few people that may come in a day that need that service. So there's also companies that are doing a lot of training these days as well. So if you are in the training business, there are people that need to be trained on how to be growers, and LaToyia probably knows all of the jobs, but there are companies that are coming out that actually train, reskill people. And with that, there may even be, depending on the state you're in, states that agree to pay you to reskill people so that they can be employees in the cannabis industry. Especially those states that have a lot of like higher long-term unemployment, to reskill people for those jobs. There's customer service as well. Sometimes the employees within the location cannot answer all the product questions that people have. And there are some companies that are subcontracting more people with more product knowledge in order to answer customer questions within the dispensaries. So there's absolutely a lot of different ancillary businesses that are starting in the cannabis area. So that's why I said I'm a proponent from a financial point of view, because I definitely see where the money is coming from, and it's going to be a huge industry. Yeah. It is a huge industry. It's going to get even bigger. Yeah.
Elizabeth said, how do you handle the banking storage of cash while the feds are treating cannabis as illegal?
Yeah, so there locally, if it's legal in your state, there are a lot of banks in your state, not necessarily the JP Morgans, the Bank of Americas, but local banks in a state that is legal, recreational, will welcome you with open arms. They may charge you a little bit higher points because it's the cannabis tax, but they will welcome you.
Good, very good. Well, this has been great session. I knew it would be great topic, I think. I love that socially you can disagree, but when it comes down to money, we get in line together real quick, right?
We certainly do.
Yeah.
We certainly do.
Love it. I absolutely love that. LaToyia, thank you so much for joining us again. Right, Charles, the bottom line, right?
Yes.
I thank you for spending time with us again and for helping continue to educate us in this area. Again, to everyone in the community, we've put the link out there. We want you to go to the page, do your due diligence, not financial advice, but please consider investing in helping these women meet their goal. A very reasonable goal also, I believe. I mean, it's doable, right? I mean, we've seen products with less value raise $100,000. So, this is where we need to band together and do that thing we do to let people know what happens when we get together, right? But I think you all share the campaign, right? If it's not something you're interested in or can do right now, that's okay. But share the campaign. These women need as many people to see this campaign as possible, because one of the things I don't know that you guys caught is they had to find a portal that allows this type of business to even present. So, here at the 10K Project, we work with all of the portals, but not all of them allow cannabis products or projects on their platforms. So that's already a barrier, right? You heard her talk about the fact that when she had people wanting to invest before, they could only take 35. The reason for that is unless you're accredited, you can only be, most deals will only be allowed or will only be open to no more than 35 non-accredited investors, right? And so it's like Sophie's choice. What 35 friends you choose, right? It's like who's going to be?
If you're trying to raise, and if you're trying to raise $1 million, the 35 need to make sense, right?
No. Right.
$500 or $1,000.
That's right. But when you do something like this, right? This gets us a seat at the table, right? That's what crowdfunding does when it's debt crowdfunding or equity crowdfunding, right? Even rewards crowdfunding, because a lot of times you get that early seat at the table of a product that makes it big after you buy the product and realize how cool the product is. Oculus is a good example of that, right? So even with rewards based, there's a road to making money from it, even if you invest in just the thing initially. But this is an opportunity, 1.5 times, right? X, so 1.5x is the ROI. You'll see all of that on the campaign page. So your call to action is to check out this campaign, do your due diligence, and then make a decision before June 10th. That is your call to action tonight from the 10K Project. Again, not financial advice.
Thank you, LaToyia, for being here. We really appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Any final words?
This has been awesome. The only final words I have, Cherie, is I can't stop thinking about the swag bag from the retreat you went to. And how it was wasted on you.
Well, let's say there was no product in the swag bag. There was no product in the swag bag.
Okay, just swag.
There was no cannabis product in the swag bag. There was other, other
okay.
Stuff.
Oh goodness.
Right.
What are your final words, LaToyia?
I know, just, thanks again for having me and having the opportunity. Definitely would love to come back and, continue to just educate folks, because I really think that's the most important part of the conversation, is really just educating folks on cannabis. Yeah. Follow us on Instagram.
Yeah. Tell everybody how to follow. Is it just Calyxeum?
So it's Calyxeum_Detroit. And unfortunately, because we're a cannabis company, the algorithm, Instagram, you got to type in the whole thing, right? We have a sister page called Calyxeum Collective, just in case anything happens. Follow that as well. And that typically comes up first, which is weird. But Calyxeum_Detroit. And just to let everybody know what Calyxeum actually means, calyx is the part of the plant that produces the medicine. And so Calyxeum is just a play off of that.
I love that. Wonderful. Okay, everybody. Good night. You got us 4 times this week. So
they did. It's their lucky week.
It's
they
very
get to see
busy
these beautiful
week.
Faces 4 times. Look at that.
Yes,
look at God.
But we're gonna come back on Monday. We'll give you the rest of your week back. Thanks.
Bye,
everybody.
everyone. We appreciate you.